Ayako Sekiguchi, a culinary researcher and registered dietitian at Wellness Kitchen. Recipes can vary from household to household, and I think the fun of making umeshu at home is being able to create a flavor you like. Of course, whether you've made it many times or you're trying to make it for the first time, I think there are actually a lot of basic questions that come up, so I'll be answering those kinds of questions as well. In the first half, I'll be making two types of umeshu, the regular umeshu and then another one. The first type is brown sugar umeshu. In the second half, I'll be answering various basic questions, so please watch until the end. Here are the basic ingredients for umeshu. First, we have green plums. These plums should be free of blemishes, without any damaged spots, and as firm and fresh as possible. Please select firm taut options. Freshness is crucial. Today, I'll be using green plums, but if you use slightly riper, yellowish plums, the flavor will turn out a bit milder. When you make it with green plums, you'll get a really fresh and delicious umeshu with a wonderful, vibrant aroma. Next is the sweetener. We'll be using rock sugar. Here's why. The reason we use these large, chunky sugar crystals is because we want them to dissolve slowly. I'll explain the reason for that later. Next, we'll add the alcohol. We're going to use a 35% white liquor. Some people might use vodka or brandy instead. Of course, it's up to your preference, but it's less likely to fail if you use something with at least 25% alcohol. Before making umeshu, there are a few things you need to prepare. For example, the stem part, you'll need a toothpick or something similar. It just popped off, but you need to remove the stem attached to the ume. After removing the stems from the ume, first wash them with water, rinse off any dirt, then put them in a colander and drain the water thoroughly. If there's water left on it can hinder the release of their essence. Wipe them dry or dry them in the shade for best results. It's okay to leave the ume as is. They have been thoroughly washed and cleaned. That's all for preparing the ume. Next, let's get the container ready for pickling. I washed it clean with lukewarm water and a sponge with bubbles. If you pour boiling water on it, the glass might crack. There's also a possibility of that happening, so it's safer to carefully wipe it with food-grade alcohol. Make sure this container is completely dry with no moisture left. Then you can start using it. Now that the container is clean, we'll start putting everything in. This will make half the usual amount of plum wine. Today we'll make two kinds. One is the regular plum wine and the other is a different type. The other will be a brown sugar plum wine made with brown sugar. Let's start with the regular plum wine. The basic recipe is 1 part sugar, 1 part plums, and 900 milliliters of white liquor. Right now, I have exactly 500 grams of sugar here. But if I use all of this, it will turn out quite sweet, so I want to use a little less sugar. First, let's start with the plums. I'll put in about half of the plums first, and then I'll add the sugar. Once the sugar is in, next I'll add the rest of the plums. Then I'll put more sugar on top again. Now this is the sugar here. There's about 300 grams left, so that means I've added 200 grams now. It's actually not that sweet. Today I'd like to use about that amount, just like this, between the plums. Can you see that the rock sugar's in there? Next, I'll slowly pour in the white liquor, letting it run gently over the plums and add 900 milliliters. Now it's exactly half and half. The white liquor is in as well. The extract will come out in about 3 months, so in as little as 3 months, you'll be able to drink it, thanks to the rock sugar. But as you can see, these are such big, chunky crystals. Why are they so big like this? The reason we use sugar that doesn't dissolve easily is because since the sugar hasn't dissolved yet, the plums are basically just sitting in the alcohol. First, Inside the plums, the white liquor gradually seeps in, and as this sugar slowly dissolves, the osmotic pressure of the liquid increases. The extract from the plums that absorb the alcohol slowly seeps into the liquid where the sugar has dissolved. Rather than suddenly soaking the plums in a sweet liquid by adding all the sugar at once. The reason for using this crystalline, hard-to-dissolve sugar is that it makes it easier for the plum extract to come out. Last time I made it with powdered sugar, but since the process is to let it absorb first and then extract, I think it's best to add the sugar little by little to match that order. For the second type, I want to make umeshu using brown sugar this time. If possible, it's better to use sugar that doesn't dissolve easily, so I'll use this kind of block-shaped sugar. The method is the same as before, and I'll use 1 bag of this. There are 300 grams, so I'll leave a little extra and layer the plums again. Well, I think this should be about right, something like this. It'll be just a little less sweet. Now I'll add the liquor. It looks like this. Since we're using brown sugar, it turns out pretty dark, but this is how it looks right now. You can usually start drinking it after about 3 months. That's the state it will be in. Keep it in a dark place at room temperature, away from direct sunlight. If the sugar hasn't completely dissolved yet, gently shake it from time to time to help distribute the sugar evenly. Now, I'd like to answer some of the various questions you may have. As for whether you can use fully ripe ume, actually you can make umeshu with fully ripe ume as well. However, the reduced sourness will make it slightly sweeter. It will have a smoother taste, but handling it becomes more delicate, so I think the difficulty level goes up a bit. As for the size of the plums, larger plums are definitely juicier and have more extract. So if you use bigger plums, you'll get more plum flavor. However, if you want to eat the plums themselves, it's also possible to use slightly smaller plums. As for using plums grown in your own garden, those are usually ornamental plums meant for viewing the flowers, so they might not be the most suitable. But if you try making umeshu with them, you might end up with a surprisingly unique plum wine. Next, about using alcohol other than white liquor. You can make it with sake or even wine. However, there are various things to consider. For storage reasons, using alcohol with a higher alcohol content helps prevent problems and also extracts the essence better, so something around 25% alcohol is recommended. I think it's easier if you use alcohol. As for the amount of sugar, use 1 kilogram of sugar for every 1 kilogram of plums. That's about the maximum amount, but you can gradually reduce the sweetness if you like. If you don't add at least 200 grams, the sourness of the plums will stand out too much and it won't taste good. So I think it's best to use at least 200 to 300 grams. There's also the phenomenon where the plums become wrinkled. However, but if you use a lot of sugar, the osmotic pressure of the liquid increases and the moisture from the plums comes out more and more, which causes them to become wrinkled. Please keep in mind that the more sugar you use, the more likely wrinkles will form. As for when to take out the plums from the umeshu, it is said that it takes about 3 months for the plum extract to be ready. You can take them out after about that time, but some people leave them in for 6 months, a year, or even up to 2 years. There doesn't seem to be a definite answer to this. If the umeshu you made has gone bad, it could be because the plums had some damage or because you put them in while they were still wet. It can also happen if the bottle wasn't properly sterilized before use. If you use too many plums compared to the amount of alcohol, that can also cause problems. If that happens and you feel it's not really suitable for drinking, you can take the plums out and boil them to use as jam. There's not really an expiration date for umeshu, and if it's stored properly, it can last 10 or even 20 years without any issues. There shouldn't be any problem. You can start drinking it after about 3 months. It's best to drink between 6 months to a year, and after about 2 years, it matures a bit more and reaches its peak flavor. As for ways to use umeshu, you can use it in cooking as something between mirin and cooking sake. It adds sweetness and just the right amount of alcohol. Sometimes it adds a plum aroma and makes the dish taste even better, so I recommend using it in your cooking as well. This time, under the theme of Umeshu, we've addressed various questions about Umeshu. I've talked about it, and since the season is just about to start, why not try making your own original Umeshu? Please enjoy it. And if you found this information helpful, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you very much for watching until the end. Let's meet again in the next video.